You will encounter errors as you use FlutterFlow. Don't go thinking that errors are some catastrophic doomsday signal that singled you out to be the patsy, while all the other FlutterFlow users are gleefully prancing about in the land of candy and perfect code. I hit errors every day, but every time I hit one, I follow the simple steps that I'm about to show you, and it's usually a non-issue. It's some minuscule setting or switch that needs to be flipped. So in this video, I'm going to give you a crash course in solving FlutterFlow errors. I'm not going to guess the solution to your particular problem and tell you the answer. I have no idea what's causing your specific error. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I do when I get a FlutterFlow error. One error I particularly hate is error, unknown error. Please contact support@flutterflow.io. If you get this error, it doesn't really mean they want you to email them, and chances are you could solve it far faster if you just dig around a little bit. As much as I hate this particular error, the path to solving it is actually relatively straightforward. You see, this is Google Cloud Platform complaining about something. The first time I stumbled on Google Cloud Console years ago, I think I was looking for an API key or something like that. My first thought was, what the f is this shit? GCP has some of the worst UI UX on the web, and it can be very overwhelming. Just try to stay focused on the error. Now, Firebase is actually an abstraction over GCP to help hide the ugly underbelly of what GCP actually is. And so it's important to understand that everything that you do in Firebase is actually mirrored in GCP, where there will be a lot more advanced settings. So for example, if I'm here in Firebase storage and I have this users folder with various objects inside of it, this is actually mirrored in GCP in the same project. This is the source of truth of these objects, and you will have a lot more advanced settings to play with in GCP versus Firebase. When it comes to deployment issues from FlutterFlow, it's probably going to be a cloud run function that didn't deploy properly. So search for cloud run functions here in the search, and this will show you the different functions that have been deployed by FlutterFlow and also by you. So here I have an example project where push notifications didn't deploy properly for some reason. The first thing to have a look at is to see whether there's anything here in cloud run functions. Because chances are that when FlutterFlow tried and failed to deploy the functions, it did succeed in creating them, it just didn't succeed in deploying them. This means that I can actually click into, for example, the add FCM token function, and there's a few things that I can play with. The most important of these, and the first port of call, will be to go to the logs tab. The logging is about as intuitive as learning quantum mechanics with a telepathic banana, but the information is here, and you can actually enable Gemini and run it to help you. Now, a good percentage of the time, the problem that you have will actually be right here in plain English. And you can even click into the log entry and have a look at some of the finer details. If it doesn't make a huge amount of sense to you, you can actually hit explain this log entry, and then GCP will use Gemini to explain the log entry to you. Sometimes that isn't enough, and actually in this case, the log entries are a little bit too cryptic. So the next thing to have a look at is the permissions tab. And actually one very common problem that I see when it comes to permissions is that there is something that is blocking default service accounts from creating certain things that the cloud functions need to deploy. An important example of this is actually the compute@developer gservice account, because this is a service account that FlutterFlow needs to be able to deploy its functions. If I take a look at a healthier account where the cloud functions have been deployed successfully, I can see that I have this project ID -compute@developer gservice, and this is a really important account. One issue I've been seeing recently for some projects is the disable automatic IAM grants for default service accounts has been flagged as active. That's going to prevent FlutterFlow from doing its thing. And I actually have a suspicion that when you give BuildShip access to your GCP account, that it might be messing with this organizational level policy. Naughty BuildShip. So do be careful and check that this thing is inactive. Sometimes you're going to need to add service accounts by hand, but very often Gemini will tell you which service accounts are missing, or it will generally show up in the logs. It takes a little time to get your head around GCP, but all the information as to why the error is happening is going to be here. You just need to dig it out. When it comes to custom code that's not compiling properly, I've had plenty of comments over the last few months of people asking for help in solving their errors, but many have seemed unaware that there is tooling built into FlutterFlow to help you with this. For example, if I hover over an issue, it will literally tell me what it thinks the problem is, and it will offer me a quick fix. So if I just hit quick fix, oh, look, I can import the library Dart async, and that gets rid of the error. It's as simple as that sometimes. Sometimes that option won't be available, but you can literally just copy paste this into AI. It'll probably tell you what the problem is. And by the way, if you're using ChatGPT and you have access to it, I definitely recommend using o1. It is far better for coding. But Claude and also now DeepSeek are also really good options for debugging code. If you have a FlutterFlow error that this video did not help solve, drop it into the comments down below. I can't promise that I will solve it, but I will try to respond with a suggestion if I can. And by the way, if your error happens to be specifically about push notifications, then you should definitely check out this video next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.